So our next thing is, what are like three realistic free agents that you think the Cowboys should pursue this offseason?
My first one would be DJ Reader. He's an older guy, but man, he's a big nasty up the middle. You honestly have to have those guys in the Mike Zimmer defense. You talk about Linval Joseph, a Geno Atkins for the Cincinnati Bengals when he was the DC there. He likes those guys, and those are the type of guys you absolutely need to stop the run, that eat up those double teams, don't allow the offense to get to the second level on your linebackers, and it allows your linebackers to play free and really diagnose what's in front of them so that they can come up and make the tackles. So he would be my first one. Um, I'm trying to think of like a low key linebacker that's on the wire right now. I'm not super big on a Bobby Wagner or a Devin White, truthfully. Obviously, Patrick Queen is the big name that's out there, but I honestly think that the Ravens are going to re-sign him. So find a serviceable linebacker, and I don't really even want to attach a name to it. I just somebody that can play linebacker and play a role and have knowledge of it. They've always played that position from their time in high school to college and to now in the NFL. One of those guys that are, they have an understanding of the position. And then, man, I think that uh, I'll take a cop out answer, and I think you have to re-sign Tyron Smith. You do not want to put yourself in a box in the draft where you have to absolutely 100% take a tackle in the first round. Obviously, if they fall to you, if somebody like a Jordan Morgan or a Tyler Guyton, one of those guys will fall to you, absolutely. Those guys are probably coveted. So go up and make the pick. But if you go into the season and let's say you let go of Tyler Biotish and you let go of Tyron Smith, those are two huge roles. And sure, you can say Brock Hoffman can fill in at center, but man, I would feel really weary about where the offensive line would be without either of those guys, in particular Tyron Smith. But I think you can get away with moving on from Tyler Biotis strictly because of his strength limitations. Doesn't have the greatest anchor inside, and kind of gets the D lineman into Dak's lap where he can't step up into throws as much. So I would let go of Tyler Biotis, but absolutely 100% keep Tyron Smith in the building.
Yeah, I definitely agree because you don't have that offensive tackle that can take over for Tyron. You could draft one in the first round, but that doesn't mean he's going to be stepping up as a Pro Bowl and perennial left tackle.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Tyron, you still get a solid left tackle. I would still draft a tackle in the draft where you could develop. Maybe you could
hmm
draft one in the second. There's a guy that comes to my mind is like a Patrick Paul, who's kind of a developmental player that you could develop into your left tackle.
Yeah, one of those things that really frustrated me throughout the season is they continually put out Chuma Adoga on that left side to fill in, and we knew Chuma Adoga wasn't a tackle. He's a guard. He played so much cleaner at guard. Every single game he had to fill into that role. But whenever he got thrown out there at tackle, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of just questionable, like, what are you doing type moments. And so I would have liked to see an Asim Richards get out there on that side. He had 37 starts there at North Carolina, I believe is where he was drafted out of. And I think all of those starts were at left tackle except for one where he played guard. So he's a guy that's seen a lot of stuff. Like, sure, he probably needs to add weight and add play strength, but man, I would have really liked to see him out there. And at least see what you have in him before you just completely projected him to be an inside guy because he has so many starts at that tackle position.
Yeah, definitely agree. So we got a comment from Falcon 000. My dream draft would be JPJ at 24, draft a linebacker in second, and Blake Corum at third. I like that draft.
Yeah, my guy Falcon popping in here. What's up, man? So yeah, Jackson Powers Johnson at 24. I mean, he has NFL size right now today. NFL strength, can move anybody. He's an absolute mauler. He has a mean streak. Really impressed with his tape once I finally got around to watching it. A linebacker in the second round. Peyton Wilson is really the name that's been floating around in Cowboys land. You can look at a Junior Colson from Michigan as well. Um, trying to think of the kid out of Texas Tech. His name has escaped me right now, or Texas A&M. Sorry. Um,
Edrin James. Edrin, I
yeah,
said Edrin James.
Edrin
Edrin Cooper.
Cooper. Yeah,
Yeah.
Edrin James. That's funny. No, Edrin Cooper. He's a big name as well. He has some pass rush ability as well. So honestly, I think that Michigan guys kind of scare the Cowboys fan base.
Yeah.
So maybe a Colson. Isn't like a name that excites people, but I saw this kid on tape. I really liked him. I thought that he played well. He's not a thumper by any means. I think that he's more of a wrap up tackler and just get him to the ground kind of a guy. But he understands. Did a little bit of guessing in gaps, but overall, really sound defender. And I thought that he can mix in with the group that we currently have, honestly, a lot. And then Blake Corum, I think he's my third running back right now, behind Bucky Irving, behind kid out of FSU. Forgot his name right now.
Trey Benson.
Yeah, Trey Benson. And so Blake Corum, three down back, in my opinion, does a really good job playing behind his pads, playing low with balance and explosiveness out of the backfield. I would love that draft, honestly. Peyton Wilson would probably be my top linebacker just because I think he's so smart and he can carry coverage really well across the field. Super athlete. I don't know if you do a lot of film watching and stuff like that, but man, he was really good as advertised whenever I watched him.
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of film. I want to probably after this show, I'm gonna watch a little bit more on him. But yeah, he fits all the check boxes. It's just like, man, if he didn't have that injury history and everything, that's the only thing.
Well, it's been 2 years since he's had an injury thing pop up. I think it's a
Yeah,
shoulder thing, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken. But man, he plays with so much like want and motor. I love that from my linebacker, and I think that's one of the things that the Cowboys defense as a whole is missing. Is there's too many divas in just Hollywood mentality of like,
yeah,
oh, I can take a playoff. Well, what happens with when 7 of your 11 players take a playoff? You get gashed. That's what happens. So I'm really about finding the guys that have the mental toughness to go 100% every single down and rest up throughout the week and not have to worry about if this guy would have just been this much faster on his read or diagnosed this thing just this little bit, we would have won the game. I'm tired of thinking about that stuff, and I just want a true linebacker in here. I think Peyton Wilson could do that.
yeah. We need a lot more blue collar lunch pill type of guys, not the kind of the ones that is like, I'm a little sore this week. Like guys that are gonna try to give it their all type of guys. That's the ones I think we should have on this team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but he has another one. Pick up Derrick Henry, free agent, draft Corum. We have amazing backfield for at least 2 years. I'm
Hmm.
I like Derrick Henry, but just the age is kind of is iffy with me and everything. It's like he turning 30 this year?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the age, but he's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Now,
I think
if I had to say anything about Derrick Henry, he's a physical back, imposing back. You pair that with a Blake Corum that can, truthfully, run in between the tackles. If anybody has any questions about that, go and watch that national championship game. Um,
man.
Absolute dog. I was surprised that Donovan Edwards went back to school, but I guess now he gets the lead back role. I was impressed with him on film, but that's beside the point. I think that if I had to pick any free agency running back out there, it'd be Saquon Barkley. And Falcon saying that right now. Saquon to
Yeah.
me, younger, he's just too injury prone. But honestly, if you go ahead and double dip with the back in college, it gives him a little bit of time to acclimate. And truthfully, when I draft or whenever I look at backs out of college to get on a team, I don't worry about them acclimating to the NFL because that's the easiest transitional position to the game from college to the NFL. Unless you're taking like a lot of pistol snaps like a Bucky Irving is, but I think he's going to be fine. It's not that much different, truthfully. So yeah, I'm completely on board with the Saquon. I think that he has all the athleticism and all the juice. You can use him a little bit more in the pass game because you have an improviser like a Dak Prescott. I would really like Saquon, truthfully.
That'd be a nice one. And then due to the fact they can't use that excuse. Well, they're gonna be expensive. Like running back share. I looked at the like on a spot track. most of these running backs are going under 10 mil right now, and there's some quality running backs out there, so that's not an excuse.
Yeah. No, I think that Derrick Henry, um, you know, he probably wants to play for a contender. So Dallas is completely in play. It all comes down to, can they get the extension with Dak done? Can they get the the extension with CD done? And can they kind of squeeze some of these other contracts and push their money later on down the road so that they can make some big moves in free agency? I honestly think that the Cowboys feel really good about their offense right now. The biggest piece is getting Tyron Smith back in the building, but I really think the free agency is going to be hammered in on the defensive side.
I definitely agree. They got to at least put a couple of pieces on the offense a little bit, add in like a veteran running back. There's one running back that interests me. He's not a big name guy, but like a Zach Moss from the Colts, who while what's his name, Jonathan Taylor was out,
Yeah.
he actually was a good solid running back. Smaller by 5'9", about 220, is a compact, he's a patient runner and everything. And he could be evolved into the receiving game and like jet sweeps and screens and some other things as well. He's not the biggest name, but he's averaged over 40 yards per carry and offers in something in the receiving game, maybe being that change of pace type of back and then getting one in the draft.
Yeah, Zach Moss is a guy that I think would be a really good 1-2 punch, kind of a back,
Yeah,
pair him with another guy. And, I'm on board with that too.
yeah, absolutely. So the next one I wanted to ask, we already kind of talked a little bit about the draft. What would be your perfect like draft for you that would fit for the Cowboys?
Man, that's so hard. Um,
There's a lot of guys.
there is so many guys. Um, are we just doing like players, or are we doing just position? What are we
uh
going off of?
Players, and we're just doing the first, second, and third round.
Man, honestly, I don't have a first round linebacker. I don't have a first round running back, and I know that those are positions of need, but I wouldn't draft one at those spots. Um, Jordan Morgan is a guy out of Arizona, tackle who's played a lot of snaps there. Did have an injury, but he got back from his injury, and it was like he didn't miss a step. One of those guys that are smart, has seen a lot of ball, and sure, he probably doesn't have quite the upside as some of the other guys, um, but I really liked him. So he's a tackle. See what he has. Um, my guy Fuaga from Oregon State. He's just risen up the draft board, so I don't think he's in play for the Cowboys anymore. But man, if you could get that guy, he is a mauler in the run game, and that's exactly what you need for the Cowboys because we didn't have a good running offensive line this year, and I think that anybody that has the athleticism to get to the second level. So I'm thinking of those guys like Graham Barton's, the Jackson Powers Johnsons that have the ability to pin and pull and get to that second level, steal off linebackers, and have the strength to really anchor in the passing department. Would completely be on my mind. And truthfully, if you take Jerry Jones's all in comments, you have to be willing to go identify your guy and go get him. If that is a Jackson Powers Johnson, you go get him. If Graham Barton, I know that he played tackle the last 2 years, but he does have center reps there at Duke, especially his freshman year. He's an athletic guy. It makes you a little bit weary because I think he is like 6'7", which is crazy big for a center. But Dak is a big guy. I don't have any worries. It's not like Kyler Murray's behind him. I would probably say offensive line to some extent in the first round, unless somehow one of those big three wide receivers fell to you. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. just absolutely no way he falls. Malik Neighbors would be very interesting. Rome Odunze there. I'm a big Xavier Legette guy.
I've seen
I
him.
don't know that I would pass up on JPJ or Graham Barton. Zach Frazier, I think, is also in that conversation for center. Um, so I don't know that I would pass up on those guys or like a Jordan Morgan or a Tyler Guyton or Troy Fontenot or whoever you want to name. Um, that falls to you on the offensive line, I don't know that I would be super comfortable in drafting him first round, second round, absolutely. You talk about the second round wide receivers, and truthfully, past this year, after this year, you don't know what you have in Michael Gallup. You're probably going to release him. You don't know what you have in Jalen Tolbert. Turpin, realistically, is he an actual option outside of the slot? No. And Brandon Cooks is on the 1 year deal. So you basically have CeeDee Lamb as your only real bona fide wide receiver. Excuse me. I wouldn't mind wide receiver in the second round, third round, one of those two. Talk about the names right there. You could possibly see a Troy Franklin drop there, a Xavier Legette. I was a big fan of what's his name? Malik Washington out of
Oh yeah.
Virginia. He is a dog. He reminds me so much of Zay Flowers in the third round. If you could get that guy, I know he works a lot out of the slot. And sure, he's short, but he's big. Like he's muscled up. He's rocked up. He has a lot of balance. Can shed off blocks. I think that he's worth third round pick for me. So I'd probably go offensive line, first round, second round. Depends on your linebackers that are there. If Peyton Wilson's out, if Colston's out, um, I'm not super huge on Trotter Jr., honestly. And the other guy, Cooper. I haven't watched enough of him just because in my film database and stuff like that, they only have one game of him, and it's the Alabama game, and I really didn't get wowed from that tape. Um, but linebackers definitely a need. I think they're going to address that in free agency. So offensive line first round, second round, I would personally lean wide receiver. And then you talk about, or if a Devondre Sweat dropped to your second round, I would be completely on board with that for the defensive line.
Oh, that's a good one.
Um, I'm just running through the players without them in front of me. I'm just muddled up here in my head. Um, I'll let you get in a word edgewise because I feel like I'm just talking so much about these prospects, man. Go ahead and tell me what you would do.
There's one receiver. I don't know if you got to watch. I watched a little bit of film and I like what I saw from him. Jalen Polk out of Washington.
Polk, I haven't watched him completely, but I've heard really good things about him. Seems like a 2-3 grade for the most part, from people that I trust. Did you get to watch him?
I got to watch a little bit of his tape, and I got to see a guy that could help, like especially when you're trying to be in that goal line or type of receiver and stuff. And he's not he's got good speed, but he's not the fastest receiver. But he got a good catch radius. He could play that X receiver. That's what I've
Okay.
seen on the film. I'm gonna watch a little bit more, but I
Is he?
definitely
Do you feel like he's a good runner?
he's a solid route runner, but he could definitely improve in that as well.
Well, I mean, truthfully, every wide receiver in college, they just run a limited a route
Yeah,
tree anyways. So a lot of them are going to have to improve in that area. But for the most part, if they get in and out of cuts, they don't round off their top of their routes and stuff like that. You can probably assume that they're going to be a pretty good route runner at the next level. Um, honestly, I haven't watched him, and I know that he and then the other Washington wide receiver as well. Help me with his name. Uh,
there's a Doomsday and there's I think McClellan. I heard about him
Yeah,
too.
McClellan. Yep. And he's interesting too. So all of those guys are for sure going to be drafted, in my opinion. I haven't watched anybody except for Rome for that team.
Yeah.
Um, man, I feel like I'm forgetting about some wide receiver that I really like. Let me pull up my notes right here.
Okay. Because on my second, I went linebacker and I went with Junior Colson. I know I know that that stigma about Michigan players, but like how you're talking about in the film, you see a really good player. I see a guy that can move sideline to sideline like a safety for his size. He's 6'3", 247, and fitting that bill for that linebacker you're looking for. And I got my notes I wrote about him. I see a guy with great size. He's a rangy run defender. Locate the ball and get to the ball carrier before the blockers get to him. And he's a guy that can shed blockers, and he has that counter when in pursuit. Can be a bit aggressive at times. Sometimes he'll try to go for the big hit from the film I saw, but just instead of just wrapping up like that's his mo is just being a good wrap up tackler. But sometimes he wants to go with the violent hit. But when it gets to the pros, sometimes that's not going to pan out. That's
Yeah. I'll read my notes on him. I said he has a really good feel for zone coverage, has the ability to attack downfield on underneath throws quickly, can be utilized in blitz packages, and shows the ability to shed blocks from tight ends, running backs at a consistent rate. Shows good gap integrity and willingness to meet the running back in the hole. Good tackler, would like to see a little bit more pop, is what I said. Consistent and instinctive run defender. My weaknesses for him were can have some trouble overextending and shooting gaps a little bit too early, which I mentioned earlier. Average at best overall in coverage, not great. Definitely do not want him to cover man to man across the field and stuff like that, especially against athletic tight ends. I just didn't see that for him. I said he could serve to be a little bit more physical, tends to wrap up and kind of drag down the tacklers instead of truly sticking them with a hard pop to make them feel it, over the middle if they're going to come over there. But overall, I really did like Colson. So I'm a firm believer in don't scout the helmets. Obviously, it's easy to do when it's a positive for like an Ohio State wide receiver. You're like, oh, I can scout the helmet. He's going to be a really good wide receiver in the next level. Alabama wide receiver. Oh, he's good. But when it's the negative condemnation, like a Michigan, you talk about Tarko Charlton, Mozzie Smith, Luke Schoonmaker. Those guys have not really worked for the Cowboys. So we have that reservation for us fans, but I'm telling you that the guys that are coming out of Michigan's program now are different. They have a championship pedigree now. They know what it's like to coach or be coached by an NFL head coach. So, and sure, you can say that about Mozzie, but realistically, Mozzie, I just going back to my thoughts on Mozzie last year, I did not see a first round grade on Mozzie. I'm not a firm believer that if you are not productive in the sack department in college, you probably aren't going to translate that to the NFL and get sacks. I know that his RAS scores were super, super high, but so was Jordan Davis. You saw the Eagles bet on his upside in the first round the year prior, and you look at their numbers, they are absolutely, like, unequivocally very, very similar. Jordan Davis obviously played with better surrounding cast with that Georgia defense, but he didn't have that upside for the pass rush. Now he was good at run stuffing, big guy, really fast, really strong. But one problem with Mozzie Smith that I saw is he was in those 4-point stances, didn't have the complete get off. And that was one of the biggest problems with me. And now he's cut size. They're trying to make him a 3 tech instead of the actual 1 tech that we need. I'm really confused with the Mozzie Smith thing. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that too, man.
Yeah, when it comes to Mozzie Smith, I know a lot of people are just quick to let like, okay, Mozzie Smith's a bust. It's just when it comes to defensive linemen, it takes time for them to develop. I didn't like how they try to have him go down like 290 because if you're trying to get a one, have him at 1 tech, why you have losing all this weight? And
Yeah.
now we got a new defensive coordinator with Mike Zimmer. You hope that you would put moving back to no at 1 tech, and he gets at least back to 320 at least. And I think it's just where you could just focus on being a 1 tech, kind of kind of not dumb it down, but just whereas he just going to be that trash can full of dirt guy, but because you like you're saying the stats didn't say he was a sack guy. He's more like you want him to be the guy that where your linebackers can roam free and everything. And I would
Yeah.
get and when it comes to free agency, I would get a one like a veteran 1 tech. I wouldn't mind Hankins, but it's just the injuries, and I think you can upgrade when it comes to 1 tech. You brought up one guy. One guy I would like for them is to get like a Grover Stewart out of what
Mm.
Indianapolis, kind of underrated